Well, from my heart to yours, Colleen Schell. Thank you for taking the time for us to share in this remarkable space, this conversation. I'm blessed to be able to just moderately introduce you, how I've come to know you and admire you, respect you, and in this conversation, in our own organic, natural way, which you do so well, just explore and feel and open to this gift that you've been to me and so many hundreds of other people with your vision of FABx, which I'm going to let you illuminate. And also just let us in on the secrets of your consciousness, your soul, your mission, what motivates you, what's your vision, big things for humanity. So I met you, Colleen, some years back, but really only in more recent months through FABx have I begun to see more of the dimensionality of your psyche, your subconscious, your articulation of life through storytelling. And not just storytelling, but the authentication, the deep-rooted truth embodiment of an authentic story told in radical Colleen-like wisdom. I feel, deeply moved to be with you today. And as prepared as I am, I'm also into the world of intimate, improvisational intimacy, which is one of the reasons why I've been so intimately attracted to your wisdom and to your voice and to your, not just your voice and your wisdom, but you bring to the world an art form, the goddess art form of FABx. So thank you for taking a moment. Let's just go on this little journey together and see where what we discover. What was the landscape, if you will, that inner topography of your life and your heart that you saw grow out of that FABx? How did it start?
So it's so great that you started with how, it kind of grew out of the landscape of my heart, because how FABx started was a time when my heart was broken. It was during the pandemic, and I had just learned about COVID and what was happening, and I had an extreme sore throat. And not knowing what to do, I just followed, you got to isolate, because we don't know what this is. I don't know what it is. People say people are dying. How do you be responsible? Okay, I'll go into isolation. So I found a nice villa and had been isolating for 4 weeks when I get a call from my sister that my mom had a stroke. And mom is already dealing with dementia. And Andrea, my sister, couldn't go into the hospital with her. And I just felt that she had done so much in her life for so many people, and it just was so heartbreaking to me that I threw myself outside on the ground and I just started screaming out to the universe. She can't go this way. Someone needs to be with her. And in between screams, I could talk to my sister Andrea. I'm like, Andrea, I'm so sorry. I just have to do this. I am overcome by something. And then I would just scream again. And the screams would reverberate through the jungle into the sky. And then I said something that didn't leave me. I've been scared for so long. And I was like, oh my God, I've been scared for so long. And I knew it wasn't just the pandemic. And that cracked me open. My heart just cracked open, and I just had to get honest with myself. I had to see that how I was living was mostly from fear. And in the garden was Mama Bali's statue, and I remember crawling over to her and praying in front of her. And I just realized if I want my mom to heal, I have to heal. So I created a mantra: I am healing, you are healing, we are healing. I am healing, you are healing, we are healing. And I just stayed in that mantra. And as the days went by, luckily, Andrea, my sister, who's so resourceful, oh my God, the woman's just amazing. She was able to get into the hospital with Mom, and she quarantined with my mom for 25 days in the hospital. About 2 days later, after I'm starting to heal, I just asked myself, all right, Colleen, what do you want to do? And what came up is, I just want to tell the stories from the stage.
What a jump.
It was very surprising, but it was so healing because it was so true. And me coming from corporate America, corner office, suited and booted, strategic business development, you know, working with some of the largest companies in the world, thinking, oh, just tell stories from stage. It seemed like such a juxtaposition, but it was so true and so real and authentic, coming from a place that was so either deep inside of me or outside of me. I don't really know which. But it resonated so deeply. It's like, okay, yeah, that is what's to do. That's the only thing to do. Tell stories from the stage.
That was the birth, the conception of FABx.
Yeah.
From Mom, the birth of a vision on a stage. Why the word stage? Why did stage appear in your heart?
The feeling of sharing, of community, of connection.
I see.
When people tell me their story, I'm just enthralled. I can sit for hours and just listen to people's stories. How it makes me feel on the inside, how I resonate with what they're sharing, how I get to learn from them, how I get to be inspired and moved by them, who they are as humans, what they've been through, how they navigated these tender texture moments of their lives to become who they are today. I'm in awe of what people do. Even ordinary life, how we live and navigate it and pop out who we are, is extraordinary.
You give people come to you, your clients, an opportunity to be under the spotlight, on a stage, the stage of their own heart, telling the story. What stories do they tell? What are you advocating as a story?
I mostly look for their transformational stories. So I'm looking for the promise of FABx is when you come in, you're going to really understand your greatness. And how we start to understand our greatness is who we were and who we've become through the challenges, the valleys of death, the fire swamps that we've been through. It's to start to understand that you hold so much wisdom just because you have been willing to wake up every morning and show up for life. As you went on this journey, you're getting these gems and they're inside of you. And once you excavate them and you start to exhume them from this internal landscape, that you can be such a contribution to others. You can start awakening yourself by knowing your own story and seeing where you've come from, and you start to get real about who you've been. Wow, I did that. And once you start recognizing who you've become and what you've navigated, there is a letting go, a freedom, a relaxation, an exhale of, I don't have to work so hard anymore. I'm already here. And now the rest of the journey is a chance just to play. Just to experience for experience sake, not to get anywhere, not to convince anybody, not to prove anything. You know, that's my hope.
So this urge of the soul, so to speak, to want to emerge out of your interiority and to emote a story on a stage in front of people, that's FABx. What story does one find when they look in their heart? How do you know the story among all the chapters of your life? How do you distill a story?
Yeah, so that's a good question, because a lot of people come to me and they say, I don't have a story, but usually what they're saying is, I have too many stories. There's a FABx formula, and it's not the only way to tell a story, but it is a way to tell a story. And I've cultivated the formula so it really cracks hearts and minds open to see things in different ways, have different perspectives, and also create that empathetic connection through vulnerability and being real, saying what finally needs to be said and telling the truth. The opportunity is to have that experience, and you get on stage and share this heart-open way so that other people get something out of your sharing as well. So it's a gift to the audience. It really is, I'm here to be a contribution. And through the journey and the evolution of you sharing your story and crafting your story, you get to all of a sudden see yourself in a whole new way. It really is starting to see, okay, what are some of the challenges that you've been through and how did you deal with those? And when you use the formula on top of that, it turns any story into a powerful, pithy, profound story that is a contribution. And the formula just works. You have the tools now to share stories in such a way that you're making that human heart-to-heart connection. Not trying to look good, not trying to prove, not even trying to teach. You're just hoping that this is a gift to you.
Why do they come to Colleen, Schell, FABx?
Usually there's two things. One is they just know they have an extraordinary story that needs to get out of them. There's a calling, a longing for, I need to share this story. I have been through something. And then the other one is this idea that if I share my story as a coach, I'll be more successful as a coach. It works. I mean, if you want to make the biggest impact in the world, using the stage and the microphone and storytelling is the way to do it.
Most people, that paralysis called stage fright.
Yeah.
You deal with that a lot?
Yes, of course.
How do I overcome that?
Yeah, and it's wild because I know sitting there they can. Because over 100 people have been on my stage and they've all nailed it. Just knocked it out of the park. Standing ovations, tears, hugs, gratitude.
And these are first-time people.
First-time speakers.
Oh, wow.
First-time speakers.
Wow.
Yeah, and they're up there on the stage, expressed, sharing themselves, moving their bodies, looking into the audience, making connections. Just, heart chakra open, throat chakra open, both of them working together.
You're helping someone to overcome and to embolden that capacity to tell a story in front of 200, 300 people under a spotlight when in fact I've never done it before.
Yeah.
That's super rad.
There's a reason why you're in front of me. It's clear that you want to do this. So I'm just a stand for them to step into that unknown, to step into that dark cave where their treasures lie, as Joseph Campbell says.
What are some of the obstacles that you have encountered with clients and people?
Yes. So of course, a lot of people are like, I can't do it. I don't want to do it. I'm not going to get on stage. I'm going to quit. I know that's just part of the process. I don't buy into it. And I just get it. I say, I get it. You want to quit. Am I going to see you next week? And they're like, yep. Great. Trusting the process and trusting your process in the process.
Oh, beautiful.
So don't compare yourself to anybody else, where they are in their story, how they're showing up on stage. It means nothing to what you're going to be able to deliver on stage. Because you have to at some point just lean in and say, yep, I'm going for this. I was at Ida Risi. She is a Balinese water priestess here in Bali. And she pours water over your head and chants sacred Sanskrit to open your heart so that it washes the emotions from the inside out. So the water is a representation of the body. And the whole thing is the Sanskrit that she shares, it just rearranges your cells. So literally you can drop emotion. So you cry like you've never cried before. You scream. Well, I should say I cried. I screamed. Even the Balinese were impressed with how much I was screaming. They've been doing this for years. I remember before that happened, before I started crying and screaming and laughing, there was a choice point. And it was like a little key in my heart. Am I going to unlock this heart? Am I going to lean into this and be in surrender and trust that this is where I should go? And I remember just making, yep, I'm going to do it. And clicked, and I just screamed like I've never screamed before. And it was, so freeing, so amazing. It was just something came over me. And it's kind of that. It's like they either have to choose to unlock themselves or go back into that cage that they keep themselves in.
That unlocking, caged, contraction, self-incarceration. Could you speak a little bit to the relaxation of that in a human mind when you work with a client?
A lot of this happens in community. And this is why it's so important to know who you're surrounding yourself with and the conversations that they're having.
So you have clients and a community of clients together, all together working.
Because it's a group.
Okay, got it.
It's a group container. It's a group coming together.
Group,
so it's
okay.
not just me one-on-one. I do one-on-one stuff, but I highly recommend people the group program.
So there's a lot of witnessing and supportive energies.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yes. And when you see other people just going up the mountain a little bit, just a little bit ahead of you, it pulls you forward. So me, I'm a little bit too far up the mountain, but someone who's just ahead of you a little bit pulls you forward to know that you can do it. So that group cohesion, that community coming together and to really support each other's greatness. And the other people, they really do. Whoever is kind of ahead of the game always goes back with a hand to pull the brother and the sister with them.
Okay, that's really
and
beautiful.
It's extraordinary.
This edge of unlocking, call it my radiance, my innate greatness. If I'm just trying to imagine someone who's watching us, okay, I hear you, I'm inspired. I know that there's greatness, but I don't really feel the energy of greatness. What is greatness in a human mind, in a heart, in a life? How does one know untapped greatness? And I'm arriving in that landscape.
My assumption would be that the willingness to awaken. And you don't even have to awaken, you just have to have a willingness to. Just that willingness to know, okay, what I think is happening is not happening. I have been fed a lot of lies, a lot of untruths, and I am willing to see life and myself differently. And once you say that, it's just the universe provides that. It's not, you can say the universe provides it, but what you're doing is you're willing to take the blinders off so your perspective starts noticing different things. So as soon as I start saying I'm willing to awaken to something different, the possibility of my greatness, all of a sudden you're going to start seeing things differently. That's always been there.
This is not just storytelling. This is the emergence of a human's relationship to, call it the etiquette of consciousness, the etiquette of the soul, the understanding of knowing, and the filters of mind states. It's a meditative, I don't dare use the word a spiritual act, but it's I want to learn how to traverse my inadequacies, my patterns of playing small, and learn mindful intelligence along this journey with you and others in this community. For these 8 weeks before I'm on the spotlight telling my story and my emergence into the world of authentic voice-activated wisdom, call it what you will. And right there inside of that heart, how do you tease out of the emotionality, if you will, the transformational energies, the actual narrative of the story? How do you, because I could easily get lost in a kind of psychodrama dance.
Yes.
I could easily get lost in a kind of, I know that it's not a psychedelic assisted transformational storytelling 8 weeks, but there's a type of personal transformation that could override the spotlight of storytelling to emerge as a public presence. How do you know your story from the transformation energy going on?
So you are going through this kind of in the cocoon, turning into the goo, and then turning into the butterfly.
Got it.
So through the process, it is very healing and transformational. You go through grief because a lot of people don't write down what happened to them, and putting it down on a piece of paper does something to you where you start understanding how things went and how they really went in your mind. And how that story about how they really went in your mind have shaped who you are today. And they dictate what you do and what you don't do. And it's that our memories are a cage to us in their own little way because we put meaning on top of that memory. If it was just the memory of what happened, it's happened in the past, it wouldn't have any power over us. But because we put some meaning on it, and that's what we bring to us in the future. We made up something happened, we put some meaning on it, we keep the meaning with us into the future. So they're starting to deconstruct the meaning that they made, and they're realizing, oh, I just made that up. That's not even true. I could just let that go. oh my gosh, I'm not unlovable, or I am enough. So much so that I have gotten through that. I got through that situation where dad abused me. You start to awaken like, oh my God, I went through that and still became great, even with the meaning of I'm not lovable, I'm not enough, whatever that meaning is. This is how extraordinary humans are. And you're starting to get yourself and the power that you have. Because humans are so powerful, and because we're all human, we're all very powerful.
So one should deeply respect that engaging you and FABx and the community of others during this 8-week process, that this is quite a radical entry into consciousness, into repression, into negative patterns, into perhaps unrecognized traumas, woundings, inadequacies, and equally the emergence of a more radiant expression of my beauty,
Yes.
the power of my vulnerability, to use a phrase that's often used today, to authenticate a more intimate relationship with my integrity, to align my life with the emergence of a more powerful voice.
Once you get yourself out of a toxic, unnatural way of living, humans are extremely resilient. So there's not a lot of trap doors when you pop yourself out of the constructs of how society told you how to live your life. Becoming our most powerful, exalted self is going through those fire swamps, going through those valleys of death, going through those situations where we were put on our knees. That's what actually sharpens the tool of who we get to be. Forgiveness arises, but also disappears because we realize we don't need forgiveness. Nothing needs to be forgiven. Everything was perfectly created so that we can experience liberation.
What you're pointing to is to tell an authentic story of your greatness, including your authenticity, your loyalty to principles and values. Undoubtedly, you're suggesting, if not emotionally advocating, people identify the principal people in their lives that have shaped knowingly and unknowingly the positive and negative patterns that they're seeing in their process together and with you to tell this story. And a lot of that is historical patterning, primarily with mother and father, with relatives, with obviously culture, schools, teachers. Is that a lot of what one could expect in working with you? Is that I'm going to do a lot of stuff with my mother and father, with my brother and my sister, my God and my goddess, and my hatred for existence and my past? How much past process is expected to be able to get onto that stage at the end of 8 weeks?
It depends on where you are in your journey, for sure, as how you have gotten complete with your parents and your past. But in the program, there is an opportunity to have a kind of completion process with your parents, where you go through a 4-step process, and by the end of it, it's an experiment. I can't promise that you're going to get what everyone's gotten. It seems to work. Everyone gets freedom, aliveness, love, affinity is brought back to the space, and there is a disconnection between I am this way because my parents were that way, and it's I get to be me, however I say it is, no matter what happened or who my parents were. That's the intention of the process. And so when you do that, then all of a sudden your story changes, your whole past changes. Because, our memory is not even true. There's been so many studies showing that we don't remember what actually happened. And the reason we don't remember what happened is because everything that we see is put through our interpretation. So it's our interpretation that is shining on the screen of our memory of the scenes that happened in our life. But they're actually skewed and not real. And so it's like there's a freedom to let go of all of it. To let go of what you think happened, to really set yourself free, and to set others free. Set your parents free, set you free. You can set everybody free once you set yourself free.
You're not just a storyteller goddess, you're a psychotherapist, you're a psychological savant in a storytelling format. with a high degree of coaching skills on an emotional, rapidly forgiving curriculum as well. You're not like saying, let's take years in therapy together here to work through mom and dad stuff.
No.
You're not even going back to mom and dad as problem.
Oh, no, mom and dad are not the problem. They never were. There are no problems.
There are no Could you elaborate a little bit, please? Because everyone's making killing on problems being resolved from the past.
As I went through my journey of awakening, I could see that everything is really happening for me. And I know everyone has heard that before. But if you're willing, and this is why this storytelling, this is why FABx is so phenomenal, is because you have the experience of healing on stage and healing others from the stage as you're talking. Instead, that experience is what starts shifting everything. So if you're willing to take your life and experiment with experiences that make you uncomfortable, you start to awaken to how uncomfortable you are. You start to understand the uncomfortable, allow yourself to feel the uncomfortableness, realize that if you feel the uncomfortableness, you're not going to die from it. In fact, once you feel it, it heals and disappears. Then you start to see life through there is no problem. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing good or bad. There's nothing to judge. It just is. And not only it just is, it's an opportunity for your full expansion. It doesn't feel nice. It doesn't look good. But if you stand inside of nothing's wrong and you just ask yourself, where do I want to go from here? What's possible in my own creation, saying and claiming I'm the creator of my life, not like it's true. But if you stand inside of that space of I'm responsible, I'm the creator, I'm the one who gets to manipulate the hologram of what's happening around me, you get that it's all happening for your own liberation. It's all arising for you to really get your greatness.
You support people in radical, attitudinal, positive reclamation, if you will, of consciousness, psyche, and substratum. I am the architect of my neuroplasticity. I am the architect of my greatness. And yes, there are influencing factors, but don't waste time blaming, judging.
No.
Reclaim, elevate, co-create, expand, right?
Yes.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, reclaim your sovereignty, your power. Go on a witch hunt to see what's making you uncomfortable inside of you. Do not stop. Just every time you feel uncomfortable, stop and be like, I feel uncomfortable, and go into it. Feel it fully. Allow it to disappear. Reclaim who you are. I am the creator and nobody else. There's nothing outside of me that's powerful. I am the powerful one, and I'm going to reclaim this. But it takes something to do that. I mean, it's a journey.
You must get some professional stage goers that say, listen, I want to break the prison of my conformity to success. I've been telling the same stories over and over again, and I'm no longer laughing. How do people deal with the imposter syndrome that you run up against in a way that Colleen and FABx supports, I would say, a kind of semi-elegant transformation from that incarceration?
Seasoned speakers come to me because they want to reignite the passion of speaking. Come. Yes. Oh, yeah, for sure.
This is not just virgins on the stage.
No. I usually work with seasoned speakers one-on-one.
Okay,
So they have a TEDx talk. Okay. They're going to be a keynote speaker at a large leadership conference. So they'll come to me knowing that I need to know, in order for me to be memorable, pop out, influence, and impact, everyone's told me I need to know my story. You know how to create stories. Tell me, what do I need to know? And so they're expecting to go into FABx learning how to tell a story. But what happens is that they break down, they break through the constraints of their already always being a certain way and thinking that this is how they're going to have success. This is what is important to them. So all of a sudden they're reevaluating once they get their story. There's a lot of tears through this process, a lot of awakening. because they're finally telling the truth to themselves.
This is coming out of the kind of successful coma for some people of paralyzed affluence.
Yeah.
I've lost touch with my creative soul.
And it's beautiful to witness that evolution. I mean, it's so funny because they start crying. I'm like, yes, 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 yes. Because I know they're getting it. They're finally getting cracked open to their greatness. So, you know, when someone's, and it's not just crying like, oh, poor me. It's crying. It's like a humbleness to your knees crying. Because
that's biblical.
Oh, it is. And it's, I mean, it moves me. It's stunning to watch.
Wow.
Like,
God.
to participate in that.
Listen to this. All prime ministers, all priests, popes, and presidents, please come to FABx and crack open the craziness of that patriarchal denial of profit and privilege and power, right?
Yeah.
So this is so much larger than storytelling. This is about transformation to core authenticity.
If anything, I would say it's an finally understanding the absolute greatness and brilliance of humanity. I mean, that's, and then when you get that, how you navigate life, the choices you make, the actions you take dramatically change.
How does a man who's confident, successful, has many hundreds, if not few thousands of people coming to their talks and retreats, listen, I'm not really that aware of my inauthenticity, my own untapped greatness. Look at me. I live in Marin County. I live in Santa Monica. I've got homes in San Tropez. I've got thousands of people. I fly business class. Occasionally I lie about and go first class. Colleen, I hear enormous things. I watched your interview with Alan Clements. I'm moved. I would like to know more about what I don't know about myself. What would you say to him or her?
Yeah, I would just say, all right, let's get to work.
Would you throw
find
some
your story.
ketamine into their left arm and a little bit of ayahuasca into their mouth?
No. I mean, this is
placebo level.
It's
how do I know what I don't know?
Well, it's digging and getting in there. It's like getting in the mud together. Like,
so you can see that in someone.
Oh yeah, it's easy. It's so easy. You know, I often say this, we're lying to ourselves, and we're lying to ourselves that we're lying to ourselves. And so once we start telling the truth, the illusion of those lies start to just fall down like the Jenga.
So this is opening the door to denial and self-deception and
yeah, but it's not that this is where people get caught up. It's not that we are in denial. Our machinery, our human machinery to keep us safe, keeps us in denial. But we don't know that that's happening. This is what we don't know. We don't know. We don't know that the machinery that beats our hearts, breathes our lungs, digests our food, specifically acts a very specific way in the brain. So cognitive dissonance is not something we choose. It literally is our brain keeping us safe. So when someone has cognitive dissonance, we can't blame them. Well, you shouldn't have cognitive dissonance. It's like, well, then you shouldn't have a brain. You got to get like, oh, they're inside of their cognitive dissonance and they haven't broken free from understanding they have cognitive dissonance to even question, do I have cognitive dissonance right now? And that's where, when you start sharing your story and just getting into the muck of the story, you start questioning your own beliefs, your memories. You start questioning how you saw things. You start questioning, what you believe, what you think you saw. Everything becomes more of a I don't know than an I know.
For these 8 weeks, people are putting themselves in the authenticity, greatness light, where they become progressively more and more unmoored from negative patterning and open up to that kind of existential neuroplastic expansion of a more authentic, vulnerable, truth-telling story. And you're there coaching them in front of other people. Mm-hmm. So we're rehearsing during these 8 weeks. Oh my God. So it's not just one event at the end. I've got to evolve through the 8 weeks with you and everyone watching me.
Yes.
And so it's super mind on mind and hands on hands and lots of tears. So one can expect for these 8 weeks a deep immersion, in other words.
Yes.
Full on immersion.
Yeah, you are immersed in your story and others. And that's why I say the power is in the process, but the magic is in the group. The group is what creates that popping of others. Like one person pops and gets it, other people have the opportunity to do that as well. Around week 2 or week 3, depending on where the group is, I finally have them get up and tell the story I know that they should tell, that they told me in the introduction call that we had. And I'm like, okay, go and tell your story. Now, and everybody else doesn't know each other that well. They know us from our masks and smiling and yes, everything's great. Oh yeah, I'm living my life dream in paradise. And then they get up on stage and share in front of each other in rehearsals about what really happened. It's palpable, the shifts that people are having when they're hearing the transformational stories of others. We're constantly making assumptions about people, and we think that we know people because we're making these assumptions, judgments. Do I like it? Do I not like it? Do I believe it? Da, da, da. And so we're like, oh, I know that person. And so again, it's a way of saying, you've just made a judgment about this person, and it puts in your face, and you get to drop that judgment. And even that experience of dropping a judgment of somebody that you've judged has you realize, oh my God, I judged this person. And again, it's just like a little mini awakening, like, oh, what I think is happening is not happening. What I think is real is not real. I'm lying to myself, and then I'm lying to myself, then I'm lying to myself. It's a phenomenal experience to see people transform through storytelling and sharing with each other in that intimacy. And everyone's crying and hugging, of course, because it's just like, oh, I had no idea.
Let me give you a practical question. Someone who's feeling into the resonance of this conversation, and they're feeling like, wow, this touches something very important to me. How do I begin to understand the rightness and the timing of this rightness to say, reach out to you, and to know whether or not it's my moment to begin that journey? Because I can feel it even for myself right now at this stage of my own life. It's highly emotional. It's magic in a way, for lack of better terms. It's the magic of being your best kept secret and your, for lack of a better term, befriending the most beautiful places in yourself. Mm-hmm. How do I know that I'm ready for that in my lifestyle, with my relationship, with my family, with my culture, with my income? How do I know the appropriateness of reaching out to you? Is there a preliminary call? Do I start a notebook? These are the signs? How would someone know the signs of beginning to want to say, this really rocks, this works for me?
It's having the courage to answer the call. And the call is always coming from the inside. And if you're courageous enough to just be real, like when I was down on my knees going like, Colleen, what do you want to do? Just tell stories from the stage. I didn't have to answer that call. But I was in enough pain at that moment to realize, oh my God, I've been so fearful my whole life, and I can't continue living this way, that I was like, all right, I'm going to follow this. So if you allow yourself to answer the call without the huge breakdown, you're giving yourself quite the gift, So if there's an inkling inside of you, like, I want this, follow that. Allow that spark to become the flame in your heart. We all have that flame inside of us, but how you tend to that flame creates your destiny. So tend to that flame, that spark that's there, and blow on it and feed it and create that fire and warm yourself and others through it.
Wow, wow, wow. One of the greatest gifts I've ever given myself in my life is to hear that calling, to want to elevate in my own humble, challenging, arrogant way a lot of the time. The gift of participating in the community called humanity. And that's what I hear you offering the world. What a gift to provide a context for someone to be met in that ancient calling of their own Mary Magdalene, their own Yasodhara, the Buddha's wife, or their own arhantship, the own enlightening process, their own nirvana in flower, their own greatness, whatever you want to attribute to your greatness, whatever label. And I guess this is my clumsy way of saying, thank you for listening to that scream in you. And I dare even bring up, the gift of tragedy, your mother's circumstance, that catalyzed your own cry, your own poetic, sapio-erotic scream to the goddess in this world. I want to be heard. I want to make a difference in this world. And it's not just storytelling. It's not just a spotlight. It's not just FABx. It's like listening to the greatest thing that I've ever given myself, which is challenging the inadequacies for whatever reason. Thank you, Mom and Dad. Thank you, military-industrial complex. Thank you, Richard Nixon. Thank you, Watergate. Thank you, terrible, 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 terrible Vietnam murderous war. Thank you, thank you, thank you, the tragedy of Robert Kennedy's murder, John Kennedy's murder. Thank you, the deplatforming of Bobby Kennedy Jr. by YouTube and Google. It's wrong, but we're going to make a difference in this world by learning to overcome our complicity, our obedience with these false authorities, right? That's what I'm hearing you say.
That's great.
Reclaim,
Yeah.
don't blame. Reclaim,
Yep.
Alan, don't blame. Don't make it petty. Step into the vocation of greatness, vulnerable as it is. And so it's my way of congratulating what gift you provided me with your community and your own elegance to hear more at this challenging time in my own rebirth here in Bali. As I brought up to you, I've been wanting to have my daughter here, Bella, 16 years old. And one of the gifts that I've wanted to provide for her, if she's to come, is a chance to participate in FABx with you. And other friends I brought in as well. And I cannot put out a more elegant, humble call to the world. Listen to that place in your heart that wants to authenticate, to break out through the revolution. May FABx morph into 10 billion expressions of what this vision is about. To listen, I can use my voice rather than having to believe in the commerciality of my transaction with stuff. You're providing consciousness as treasure. You're a revolution. It's so far beyond a stage with lights. There are many political prisoners in my country of Burma right now, 15,000, along with my friend Aung San Suu Kyi, alone in a prison cell, a global witch burning by the New York Times and CNN and BBC by lies, where she has been given a life imprisonment by a patriarchal, dictatorial, fascist terrorist named Ming Online. And I hear in my heart the cry, sir, what aren't you listening to inside of your own heart to crack the coma of your conditioning? All the people of the world that are in positions of power, hear what you're offering, how to authenticate and come out of the trap of conformity to toxic expressions and behaviors that denigrate. And let us learn to tell a story of love, of compassion, of goodness, of freedom, of truth, of mutuality. What more can you share with others that might be the flower opening on this beautiful meadow of beautiful plants and trees?
One of the most beautiful gifts you can give yourself is getting back to your nature. And this storytelling experience has you do that. It allows you to have a glimpse beyond the wall that you're in into a garden of what's possible and what's available being human. And it starts to put in perspective the journey and what happened to you and how all of it has been a gift. And when you ring that bell, you can't unring that bell. When you start to even, again, being willing to see, oh, maybe this was for me. The people who want more freedom and more availability to move in life, the experience of how unlimited you can be, and giving yourself those options and that choice allows for the possibility of your nature to arise again. That thing that's in you, that seed that's there. I remember I was at an ashram and they had just paved a path for riding bikes in the jungle, in the forest. And it was too hard to ride my bike. So I got off my bike, I started pushing. And because I was pushing the bike, I was looking around more. And I noticed on the sides of the path were orchids, wild orchids being grown. And I was like, wow, this is so beautiful, this beautiful flower. And then I looked into the other areas of the forest and there was no orchids. I don't know how long that seed had been there for it to finally get the water and some sort of nourishment enough to finally grow into that orchid, because they had taken what was above it off to make the path of the bike. But knowing that seed, I have no idea, hundreds, centuries, I have no idea. But knowing that seed is there. And once you create the conditions for that seed to grow, it grows. And that's what's possible of letting go, surrendering, getting away from blame, reclaiming your power, understanding you're the creator, knowing, owning, and sharing your story allows the beautiful nature, that beautiful orchid that's inside of you, to grow, to germinate, to start to grow, to flower, to be beautiful, and allow yourself to be nourished in that way that you are this precious flower that needs to be nourished. And giving yourself that so that you can have that experience of not only being the creator, but participating in other people's experience of them being the creator. And that's what's possible when we get back to our nature. And it's just automatic. It's like, it's not like I'm saying, people are resilient. Once you clear the shite away, the only thing left there is the greatness is there. You don't have to put the greatness inside of people. It's there. It's just covered up right now. And so storytelling, if you think of it as the iceberg, yes, on top it's you storytelling, but what's holding that storytelling up is that transformation, that feeling of greatness, the authenticness of the power that is inside of you. Dropping all those stories, being courageous, forgiving them, realizing you don't need forgiveness, trusting in them, realizing there's nothing to trust or not trust. Like all this happens. But the knowing, owning, being responsible for your life and your story, and then the act of sharing it is where the magic lies.
How do I even begin to formulate a little bit of a sketch of my story so that when I do reach out to you, I have something to say?
Yeah. So great. First of all, you don't need to know your story to reach out to me for sure. I will easily help you find it. It's so easy to find. And I know it's overwhelming. But if you do want to start your journey on understanding your life story, the best way to do is create a story stable where you take Post-it notes and you just write down defining moments of your life. And usually defining moments are those times where you were put to your knees, where things went quote unquote wrong, when it was difficult for you. And start putting them into Post-it notes, just like just name it something so that you remember it. For me, getting a check minus in reading comprehension when I was 7 years old. Okay, and then what did I make that mean on another Post-it note? I made it mean I'm stupid. My sister, who was extreme bully to me, and experiencing what that's like, maybe something that happened. I remember one very specific incident that happened that was really tragic to me. Put that on a Post-it note, and what I made it mean about myself was I'm not important. And then just throughout the thing, getting rejected from David in high school, what I made it mean about myself. So then you can start seeing a landscape of all the stories in your life, the defining moments, and then what you made that mean. So something happened, and then you made it mean something, you put it together, and then that's what you remember, both the incident and the meaning. And so now all of a sudden you're starting to realize how your life was shaped. And then you can come to me and then you can share, okay, here's what I remember. And that's one way that you can start coming to me, but also to start sharing. Even just sharing, like, oh my gosh, I got a check minus on my reading comprehension when I was 7 years old, and my sister never got a check minus, and I made it mean I'm stupid. And then even more than I said, okay, how do I compensate for being stupid? Oh, I have to be nice. And then all of a sudden, the Colleen, the 7-year-old Colleen, unknowingly put the 35-year-old Colleen into a cage of, you have to be nice in order to be loved. And I lived my whole life through that. Trying to negotiate multi-million-dollar contracts with Microsoft, trying to be nice. Trying to share myself authentically in corporate, trying to be nice. Trying to actually cultivate a life that I wanted and that had me thrive, but people pleasing and abandoning myself constantly. Just didn't work.
I see no greater gift that we can give ourselves is to, for me, in my way, bring the Dharma, the Dhamma through our own voice, our own unique expression of lived story enactment and trans storytelling through the way we live. And then you've got a story. The way we live, make it so epic that the way you kiss, touch, move, wash, bathe, smile, cry, grieve, hope, and die, if we're even aware of that, make it into a story that inspires the children, the bees, the butterflies, the eagles, the deities, the devas, all beings everywhere to aspire to the highest radiance of freedom.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Wow. I just love this idea that what comes up for me when you're saying all that is, what's the story you're writing moment to moment? Because we are writing our story and living that.
That's right.
Living that beingness. There's a lot of people who are talking about how to live, but who are they on a Tuesday morning when they're getting up? What are the actions they're taking? That's what I want to know. That's what I want to know.
You know, it's beautiful you bring that up. Even in the brief time I was a Buddhist monk in Burma, we were encouraged in the monastery to live in the most mindfully intelligent respect for total embodiment of being and consciousness here and now. That was meditation. And it was somewhat easier to do in the company of other nuns and monks in the meditation hall, but we were even more encouraged to embody that when alone. The way you were in your room, the way you lie down to sleep, the way you washed and felt the soap on your face. It was high, what we called intimate existential Dharma reverence for relational presence with self and in context with other and with infinity, or what they call samsara. So a no time off, intimate, present, reverential, mindful intelligence, story enactment of greatness. That was meditation in the monastery.
Wow.
And very few people got it from that level, but it took time so that ultimately you could graduate from the monastery to live in lived experience rather than just being mindful of phenomena, but to live in that. What story am I going to live and tell? That's my greatness. What is your aspiration? And for me, there's no higher radiance than freedom. Freedom from my own inadequacies and blindnesses, and the freedom to inhabit beautiful states of consciousness. And ultimately, for me personally, as a very closet esoteric Buddhist, I want to find a place free of suffering. I know that's idealistic, but a galaxy, a universe that's beyond the physics of what we know. Call it a dreamer. I'm a dreamer, where there is no rape, there is no genocide, there's no Holocaust, there are no asteroids that take Earth out. It's still, I don't want to give up on that dream. of an existence where there isn't complete freedom from the conditions of suffering.
Mm.
So that story takes risks, the adventure of living over the commodification of exchange. That's what I hear you is on that stage. Hey, listen, don't be holding out for the applause. You got to really deliver from your heart. Don't disappoint yourself, right? Go for the dream. One of the greatest gifts that we could receive is how human you are, how open you are, and how beautiful you are with your elegant, emotional, psychological relationship to yourself and shared space. So relational and so beautiful. So thank you from my heart for taking the time, for sharing your wisdom and sharing your greatness. And I cannot encourage the world more than what's been shared to find that place in you that wants to rise up and tell a story that only you can tell. So thank you, Colleen.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much, Alan. It's just such an honor to be with you and to be celebrated by you and being able to see myself through your eyes. It's such a gift. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.